one does not simply walk into Hell Pit. Its depths are guarded by more than just rats. There is evil there that does not sleep, and it comes straight from the 41st millennium. Ghoritch, castellan of this accursed realm, shall henceforth be known as MECHA RATZILLA, and if he knows one thing in this world, it's how to bring the pain. See how Clan Moulder matches up against the High Elves here on their own home turf, in the depths of Hell Pit, and once again, playing on Waka Waka 3000's custom maps. Very thematic one for this auspicious day. And Ghoritch woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. He's gonna make Knife Ears hurt if he can, with Warp Frenzy and eviscerating claws that could crush a Cadillac. He is a scary dude. I think he's bigger than a Terminator. And he hits like 1-2, 30 bonus versus infantry, but his weapon strength is so high that he's really quite effective in duels against large monsters as well. Particularly if he's backed up by someone like Throt the Unclean. Got that patented 1-2 combination with Moulder to heal, Creature Killer to help in duels against big scary monsters, and Rat Ogre summons to throw into the mix against a big target like Eltharion the Grim. Not a whole lot of infantry at the start, but it's very easy to swarm the map from reinforcement points, so as Skaven, I like to start expensive. Death Runners on the flanks, Plague Claw catapults, and a Warlock Engineer with Warp Shard armor to help Mortistrain in the grind. Crack's Call, Howling Warp Gale, Warp Lightning as his spells. On the other side, very far from home, come the Elves of Tory Vrest with their leader Elf Batman, front line of Silvern Guard, Archers, Rangers, Lothern Seaguard, and of course Eltharion himself on Stormwing the Griffin. Apotheosis, Soul Quench, Fiery Convocation. Now the thing about Hell Pit as a domination map is that it is very small, as you can probably tell, and it's very choke pointy, which means your artillery is well protected when it spawns in and can immediately start shooting at objectives. That's a big deal. Basically, you summon in Plague Claw catapults, avalanche mortars, organ guns if you're the dwarfs. It's actually the kind of map dwarfs absolutely love. And despite their struggles in this game mode, they probably perform very well here. But I think that's going to be true for Skaven as well. So we're going to put that to the test. Looking back on it, I don't think there's any reason for me to bring Howling Warp Gale, because I don't have any Rattling Guns or Giselles that can actually capitalize on killing Eltharion in the air, should he be netted in place. Howling Warp Gale is a really good spell, but if you just kind of net him and prevent him from moving up in the sky, then it really doesn't make much of an impact at all. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. In fact, not going to use that spell a single time this battle. But the Brood Horror, which is an amazing mount for Throt the Unclean, and Throt is an incredible lord himself, especially backed up by Ghoritch. Eltharion can't take that duel. He's never going to try. Every time he sees them bounding his way, he is going to flee. And though this map is pretty small, the Griffin and the mobility it affords is certainly going to help a lot, and he can easily cover the entire width of this battlefield in but a few short moments. Sneaky little plays incoming with the Death Runners. When the time is right, they'll pop their concealment bombs and go for a wide-ass flank. In the meantime, though, Stormwing content to rip his way through clan rats and slave rats and tear out them off the objectives. And without any support over here, that Skaven infantry will not last very long. Now, Plague Claw catapults are doing amazing. They've already done a ton of damage to Silvern Guard and the Archers, but even more importantly, Avalanche Mortar just got spawned in, and this unit is utterly ridiculous. I don't know any other way to put it. They were born and bred to make infantry and cavalry cry, especially the Elves, who, as you know, love holding hands in those really tight, compact formations. Avalanche Mortars have always been super strong, but they feel especially crazy now with Immortal Empires, and it's super easy to protect them when you can just fire from spawn on a small map like this one. So, home court advantage for Clan Moulder, I guess. Don't get it twisted. Opening stages of this battle are going to favor the Skaven, especially when Ghoritch is running into the middle of everything and doing his little cyclone attack, which is just absolutely hilarious. But it's a long game mode, so even though we're going to see a lot of infantry essentially two-shot at the start by these Avalanche Mortars and by Ghoritch's rending and ripping claws, do not despair for the High Elves. They are a resilient folk, and they've got plenty of time to think up a way to counter all this madness. Eltharion the Grim certainly going to be a major factor here. It is really tough when you're up against artillery on them. God, that's so much damage. Holy shit. It's really hard when you're up against artillery here because you don't know what your opponent is going to bring out or when they're going to do it, right? So if you want to contest any of those objectives, if you want to go to point number 2 or point number 3, well, that's fine, but you're not going to see what your opponent has in store until you're there. And at that point, they spawn in avalanche mortars, plague claw catapults, what have you, and suddenly you're being exploded. Your infantry won't have time to disengage, so they're pretty much stuck in. and they'll be forced to weather the storm. And when you weather the storm against avalanche mortars or organ guns, usually it just means death. Warp lightning also bringing death to the Rangers. Seeing those silver striations over a lot of the elf infantry, that means warp shard armor is going to work with that mortar strain effect. Death Runners with their concealment bombs got a nice ambush into the back of the Lothern Sea Guard, but High Elves responded with a White Lion Chariot unit. Not a bad idea at all, and that's a great way to clear out a bunch of these infantry, which Skaven are starting to swarm with. So they started out with the really expensive Elite HQ, and now the swarms, the Vermintide, are coming out to play and giving a little bit of cushion for Ghoritch to get in there and start casting his Evisceration, which, I mean, has got to be one of the coolest abilities in Warhammer. I mean, he literally just drops his claw into the ground and becomes the Spinny Boy. Look at how adorable this guy is. I love him. I seriously love him. I think he's got to be the highlight of the Clan Moulder and Sisters of Twilight DLC. But Death Runners are going to work with their Weeping Blades and Karate Kicks. Imagine getting your head literally decapitated by a Taekwondo roundhouse. Insane. Those Skaven have been eating their Warpstone Wheaties, and so has Ghoritch. He's already up to about 40 kills or so, and he's going to continue to be a massive thorn in the Azur's side as he venerates Khorne with his mechanical contraptions. Eltharion is realizing the center is pretty much already broken. They're going to have to rely on reinforcements now. Do not sleep on those bolt throwers, though. Counter-sniping, both against Ghoritch, the Brood Horror, and against the artillery, could be a major factor as we move into the middle stages of this battle. They're really good at sniping out avalanche mortars and plague claw catapults if they can get into range. So far, they've elected to stay out of range for now, shooting at the monsters, but because Remolder can heal them up, I think counter battery is probably the play for those bolt throwers, and I believe they have now switched targets, especially with the monstrous infantry coming out. Rat Ogres over on point number 3. Lothern Sea Guard, the Riders of the Storm. Riders on the storm, into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown. I'm sorry, I'm not. I lied. Ghoritch going off in the middle of everything. Now, he does have to be careful because in a 1v1 against Eltharion, he does have very low melee defense, so though he could deal a lot of damage back, typically don't want to just overcommit him into the middle of the enemy army. But I think the High Elves are being smart. They're not summoning more infantry into the middle of the map because they know that Ghoritch, the Brood Horror, and the artillery is waiting to explode them. So instead, they're going to play out on the flanks. Rahagra's Pride, the White Lions, coming out, and they're going to munch on those Death Runners and should be able to kill them quite efficiently. Apotheosis is the easiest way to keep Eltharion topped off. You can spam that throughout the course of the battle, and of course, we'll be imbuing that ward save map wide. But there aren't a lot of units on the field for the High Elves right now, and at the moment, they are just being torn asunder by the Clan Rat and Rat Ogre combination. Riders on the Storm can fire while moving, and they were able to get some good shots in on the approach. Now that they're in melee, they should be able to deal some damage, but with Warp Lightning coming in from the Warlock Engineer in the middle of the map, who can easily cast the side objectives because of how small the map is, that is going to swing that in the Skaven's favor. And while the Raki have control over point number 3, it looks like the Azur are making a push towards point number 1. Rahagra's Pride leading the charge, clearing out the Death Runners, and then probably diving into the rear, start dealing with the rest of the infantry back there. Eltharion could also offer some terror in that fight. Brood Horror is doing the same thing, though. Throt the Unclean is in the High Elves backline, munching anything that spawns in, and that is why the Azur have, for the most part, not been summoning infantry, because they realize how dangerous this combo is. And frankly, I don't think Eltharion wants to take a duel with those units nearby. If you're the Elves here, honestly, don't send in the Silverhelms. You're not going to deal anywhere near enough damage to get rid of Throt the Unclean, especially with Ghoritch nearby. Really nice fiery convocation, and it made like a rectangle there, bounced off 3 separate walls, immediately cleared out, and the Pit Fighters of Hell's Deep are surrounded. They also have Rampage, so if they get Rampage there, that could be hugely problematic because that's an expensive unit, and they were just summoned. They haven't really done much of anything. Lothern Sea Guard and the Cav are actually doing a great job over there. Looks like they might be able to take control of that objective, and if that's the case, that'll be a 2-to-1 in favor of the Elves of Tor Yvresse. VPs are 400 for the blue and 350 for the yellow. Ghoritch, the Warlock Engineer, and Throt the Unclean are still playing Ratmen Avengers in the High Elves back line, and there's almost nothing left of the Elf army right now, but what they're doing, I would presume, is saving a lot of their supply for a big push. One anchored by the Riders of the Storm, which are still alive, actually did way better in that fight than I anticipated. The Clan Rat and Rat Ogre combination was completely pushed back, actually. And I think Lothar and Seaguard really are the core of a lot of what the Elves love to do in Domination mode. They're a really good unit for this game mode, especially now with all the changes to the scoring system. Longer games means shooting is more effective. You have more time to rack up value with your shooting, and then they can still run onto objectives and contest those hybrid units. Same with Kislev, with a lot of their Kossars and their Streltsy, really effective units. As Warp Lightning sends a few Illyrian Reavers to meet their maker in the Pale Queen. Aerith Kiel licking her lips in anticipation, baby. In the middle, Throt the Unclean and Ghoritch are moving their way towards point number 3, which is in full control of the Azure, as well as point number 1. See, the High Elves are definitely putting a lot of emphasis on playing those flanks, but remember, all 3 points are contested. There is no natural, there is no enemy capture point. They are all 3 contested, which means it's going to be fierce fighting all the way across the battlefield, and that's what we've seen thus far. Nice little sandwich plays from both players, actually. Council Guard are coming out. Stormvermin and Halberds are unbreakable and will imbue Guardian Aura to Throt the Unclean in this coming duel. Big charge from the rear, full surround off, but Eltharion's going to pretty much stuff that sandwich. He's going to prevent the Rat Ogres from linking up with Ghoritch and Throt the Unclean, and now push on towards the spawn. Plague Claw Catapults were just summoned, but that might have been a mistake, because Rahagra's Pride are right there, and the only thing blocking up some of the most elite Elven units from getting into spawn are a bunch of Wolf Rats, which certainly do not have the leadership to hold up for too long there. Big time fiery convocation. That was disgusting. Oh my lord. That was a double bounce off the backboard back to Papa, and the Council Guard melted to that spell from Eltharion the Grim. It's a big cast right there. The Elves needed that to get back into the game. Probably didn't kill too many models, just the fact that an unbreakable unit's already down to half HP after a single cast is a big deal here. Single target heals going the way of Eltharion the Grim with Apotheosis, and he just cleared out spawn pretty much single-handedly. Did have some support, I guess, from the White Lions and Rahagra's Pride. Skaven need to be very wary of summoning more units onto the battlefield now, because they might just die immediately upon entering the battlefield. Rat Ogres just rallied, and now the Ratmen Avengers are going back in. Castellan of Hellpit and Throt, leader of Clan Moulder, going to work. Brood Horror and Terminator Claws, making the Silver Guard very sad. Slight mistake there. Creature Killer was activated for the duel with the Phoenix. They're not actually attacking the Phoenix at the moment, so it'll be mostly wasted. But regardless, single entities charging in, set up for a gorgeous Crack's Call. And those Silver Guard, really none of the High Elf infantry have managed to survive very long, except for those Riders of the Storm. I think that's like the only regiment that has done anything in terms of infantry fighting potential for the High Elves up to this point. In terms of VPs, as the Phoenix drops Flaming Poops on the Council Guard down below, 735 to 711. If Flamespire Phoenix isn't as, well, actually it might be able to snipe out the Warlock Engineer. That would be a big pick. I don't know how much Winds of Magic the Skaven have at this point, but certainly if there's a few more casts remaining in that thing, killing the Warlock Engineer would be pretty impactful. But it's not going to give a crazy amount of map control back to the High Elves. They do ultimately need units to actually be able to cap things, and Phoenix can't cap because it is a flyer and a single entity monster. But it is a very efficient unit for clearing out enemy infantry because of those Flaming Poops. And it'll also be able to duel Ghoritch and Throt the Unclean should the time arise. I think Eltharion the Grim and the Phoenix would be able to do pretty well in that kind of situation, even with the Beast Pack, which I think Throt has already summoned, so that's not going to be a factor here anymore either. And Creature Killer is obviously pretty time sensitive. It's only going to be a small percentage of the overall battle. So plus 16 bonus versus large on Ghoritch from Creature Killer would be great in that duel. It just won't last long enough for it to matter, and I think Eltharion and the Phoenix should be able to take them in a duel should they decide to go after one. And they might need to, honestly, because Ghoritch and Throt together have really been causing all kinds of carnage for these Rangers and Silver Guard every time they try to contest a point. Really nice use of the Phoenix there, exactly what it is supposed to do here. Basically clear out all the infantry with the bird droppings, and then they can go in with Eltharion and take this fight. Now, Remoldered was just sent the way of Throt, or rather Ghoritch. So he's going to get plus 24 melee attack and essentially a regrowth. A lot of heals. We won't get him back up to full, but pretty close. Pit Fighters of Hell's Deep have a full surround off on the Flamespire. Eltharion should come right over there and finish that unit off to help out. Double Griffin or Double Bird against the Pit Fighters of Hell's Deep should be a good fight for them. Right now he's trying to Soul Quench Ghoritch from the field, but he has enough armor that it won't really matter that much. And a big Warp Lightning to hit the Silver Guard and the Rangers. Some friendly fire in there too, but definitely a good trade even through the spell resistance of those Silverants who are wavering now. Rahaga's Pride came in from behind. This is a great fight. And again, the Pit Fighters of Hell's Deep were just resummoned for the second time. They're gonna die here. There's absolutely no hope for them. Throt realizes that his favorite little minions are in danger, so he'll charge in, but I don't think he'll be able to stick around. There's a lot of high elf power. Actually, the Flamespire took a lot more damage in that fight than I anticipated. Pit Fighters with a full surround off, I guess, that is a lot of AP and weapon strength, but it's a bit misleading because Phoenixes on this build are bugged. They're kind of busted. They automatically always get the regeneration and the revive, and that'll trigger 3, 4, 5 times until they hit their healing cap, and then they might rout. So don't expect that Phoenix, even though it's low, to die anytime soon. Clan Moulder's gonna have to put in a lot of work to finish that thing off. Big time charge coming in from the Silver Helms out of spawn, getting rid of all this infantry, and that's important because the Skaven are probably running pretty thin on foot troops at this point. Oh, the Flamespire is doing his... Why has that not been fixed yet, man? I hate seeing that. Okay, finally it landed. But when they get stuck in that landing animation and aren't able to attack for minutes at a time, it feels really bad. You gotta pay attention. Every time you give your flyers an attack order to land on something, you gotta zoom down and make sure that it is doing what it is supposed to, because you can lose out on a minute or two of attacks, and that can be completely game-changing. Here, he caught it pretty quick. Ghoritch is dropping very low. Flamespire got another revive, so back up to about a 5th health or so. Wolf Rats trying to contest objective number 1, but not going to be enough over there. Skaven do have a relatively commanding lead on VPs. It's 1,200 to 1,000. Rahaga's Pride have been incredible this game. They're still alive. They killed those Eshin Death Runners back at like minute 4, and they're still here 11 minutes later. Warp Frenzy activated for Ghoritch. Throt the Unclean's in the fight as well. They're trying to take down this Flamespire. They're not able to because it continues to regen. That'll probably put it at the healing cap though, and now finally it has routed. But Ghoritch is dead, essentially. Bullet Thrower's been sniping him out for a while. A lot of Skaven infantry over on point number 3, and it looks like the objective will swing the way of the Thagoraki. And Ghoritch, he's probably not long for this world. Bolt Throwers, we can see them coming over the horizon. Good night, sweet prince. You put in so much work for Clan Moulder here. Over 4,000 damage value. Absolute freaking beast. One of the best games I've seen from Ghoritch in a really long time. And frankly, you don't see him too often in multiplayer. So was very happy to get some good action in with the boy. Eltharion the Grim did route towards the edges of the map. He may yet return. But the Flamespire is very low. Riders of the Storm are probably going to die here to the Death Runners, which, I mean, that's what they're supposed to do with their Weeping Blades and bonus versus infantry. Can't believe that Phoenix returned, man. That thing has been a thorn in the Skaven side, but I think it's not going to matter. The Skaven have commanding lead on VPs here at minute 16. 1370 to 1066, just like William the Conqueror, Duke of Normandy. And they shall take this battle of Hastings as Throt the Unclean continues to sate his never-ending black hunger. A couple more bird poops from the Flamespire might be able to clear out the Death Runners, but Skaven have full control of that objective, and that will be enough to see them through to a victory. High Elves would need a triple cap, and they simply don't have enough infantry on the field to secure one. Clan Moulder will push through in the center to ensure these Lothran Sea Guard and High Elf archers do not join in the wider battle. And as the sumo charge comes in and the RKOs drop from above, the People's Elbows will put the High Elves in an early grave. That will be a win for Clan Moulder on their home turf in the depths of Hell Pit. Or should I say at the apex of it? I guess they're not truly in the depths right now. It's kind of at the top outside, but you know, it sounds cool. And it's funny because I don't know if it's intentional or not, but this map does seem to favor artillery factions like the Skaven. Like I said at the beginning of the game, Skaven, Dwarfs, Vampire, Coast. The fact that they can basically plug up all those choke points with a ton of fodder to one, cap points, more importantly, just to hold down your opponent and explode them with all your artillery. It's really good. Being able to fire from your own spawn onto objective number 1, objective number 2, and objective number 3, it can be game-changing here, and we saw that from the Avalanche Murders and the Reinforcing Army. But the MVP was honestly Ghoritch, Castellan of Hellpit. 4,100 damage value. He got great duels in against the Flamespire and against Eltharion, and cleared out all kinds of infantry. Deathglobe Avalanche Mortars only got 1,500 damage value, which is really good, especially considering that they were only summoned the one time and fired all their ammo and then disappeared. And that's really the scary thing about them, is they are relatively limited on ammunition, but they'll cause so much carnage so quickly that we basically saw the High Elves entirely pushed away from any of the objectives for the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game. The only reason they even retained any of them was because the Skaven didn't invest much in infantry at the start, and instead waited to trade well and then start summoning the swarms once a lot of the High Elf infantry was cleared out. Eltharion did well this game, so did the Flamespire. The Silver and Guard were probably the biggest issue for the High Elves. They did nothing. It's not really their fault, it just got exploded. But I think more Lothern Sea Guard and maybe some more units to pressure that back line earlier would have been more important.